Ascend and Awaken, a life of balance. Welcome to Ascend and Awaken. Today, we turn to the German philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche, whose writings continue to challenge and inspire. Nietzsche had much to say about struggle, suffering, and hardship, not as obstacles, but as essential elements of growth. For the longest time, I thought a good life was an easy life. You know, a life of comfort, stability, and predictable calm. This belief, this idea I'd soaked up from the world, wasn't making me happy. It was doing the exact opposite. It made me weak, resentful, and terrified of life itself. Every small problem felt like a personal attack. Every failure felt final. I was brittle, and it felt like the world was full of hammers. This is the story of how one of history's most radical thinkers, a man who lived a life of non-stop agony, taught me how to turn my suffering into my greatest strength. It's the story of how I stopped running from hardship and learned to use it for unstoppable growth. And it all starts with a question that flipped my world upside down. What if the very things we're so desperate to avoid are the only things that can actually save us? The sickness of modern comfort. We live in a world that's constantly selling us a dream, a life without friction, a life optimized for happiness, delivered through an app and bubble-wrapped against any and all discomfort. Our phones promise instant everything. Our culture tells us to chase good vibes only and cut out anything that doesn't spark joy. We're taught, almost from birth, that suffering is a sign something's wrong. It's a bug in the system, a glitch in the pursuit of permanent contentment. And for a long time, I bought it all. I built my life around avoiding pain. I took the safest career path, ducked out of difficult conversations, and dodged any real risk, both emotional and professional. My whole goal was to build a fortress of comfort. The only problem? A fortress is also a prison. The weird paradox is that a life spent avoiding suffering creates its own special kind of suffering. By sidestepping every challenge, I was also sidestepping every chance to actually grow. Life became flat and gray. With no mountains to climb, there were no views to earn. This constant avoidance didn't lead to happiness. It led to a quiet, creeping anxiety and this deep feeling that none of it mattered. In my mission to feel nothing bad, I was slowly making sure I'd never feel anything truly great. As Nietzsche might say, our comfortable world, by saving us from immediate pain, leaves us wide open to a much deeper psychological pain. It's the suffering of a soul that's never been tested. What if this obsession with comfort isn't our society's strength, but its biggest sickness? What if running from pain is just another way of running from life itself? The turning point. Discovering a philosopher, forged in pain. My breakthrough didn't come from a big win. It came from a period of spectacular failure. A project I'd poured my soul into for years completely fell apart, a relationship ended, and that fortress of comfort I'd so carefully built just crumbled around me. It was there, sitting in the wreckage, feeling weak and bitter, that I stumbled onto the works of Friedrich Nietzsche. And let's be clear, Nietzsche is not a feel-good philosopher. He doesn't serve up easy answers or gentle pats on the back. What he offered was something way more valuable, a powerful, world-changing perspective. The thing is, Nietzsche wasn't some academic in an ivory tower just thinking about struggle. His own life was a relentless storm of suffering. From a young age, he had these debilitating health problems, migraines so bad they'd leave him blind and vomiting for days, chronic pain, and a neurological condition that got so bad he had to quit his job as a professor in his mid-30s. This was a man who lived in near constant physical agony. He was also profoundly lonely, misunderstood, and rejected by his peers. I realized his philosophy wasn't born in spite of his suffering. It was born because of it. It was forged in the exact same fires I was trying so hard to put out. He didn't write about hardship as a thought experiment. He wrote about it as his daily reality. That gave his words an undeniable weight. Here was a man who, by all rights, should have been crushed by life. Yet from the depths of his pain, he produced some of the most life-affirming philosophy ever written. He argued that suffering wasn't something to just get through, or even worse, get rid of. He believed it was an essential, necessary, and even beautiful part of living a great life. That idea was terrifying. And it was exactly what I needed to hear. The first lesson: the forge of the soul, the will to power. The first idea that just shattered my old way of thinking was Nietzsche's will to power. Now, this is probably one of his most misunderstood concepts. We hear will to power, and we think of tyrants, domination, and being ruthless to get ahead. But that's a total misreading. The will to power, as I came to get it, isn't about power over other people. It's about power over yourself. It's that fundamental drive inside every living thing to grow, to expand, to overcome, and to become stronger. It's the force that makes a seed crack through concrete or a tree grow tougher when it's battered by the wind. And for us humans, hardship is the resistance we need to exercise this will. That was the lightning bolt for me. I'd been seeing challenges as punishments. Nietzsche taught me to see them as resistance training. Every setback, every failure, every painful moment wasn't a sign I was losing. It was a chance to engage my will to power, to get stronger, more resilient, and more capable. It's all packed into his most famous line: "What does not kill me makes me stronger." That's not just some motivational poster quote. It's a deep psychological truth. Just like a muscle has to be torn down by resistance before it can grow back stronger, our character and our spirit need adversity to develop. Comfort keeps us weak. It's the storms and bad weather, as Nietzsche wrote, that allow a tree to grow tall and proud. I started to look at the rubble of my life in a new way. That failed project wasn't just a loss. It was a brutal workout that taught me lessons I couldn't have learned otherwise. The ended relationship wasn't just heartbreak. It was a masterclass on my own emotional patterns. I began to reframe my suffering not as damage, but as discipline. It was what Nietzsche called the discipline of great suffering, which he believed was responsible for every single advancement of humanity. Just that one shift in perspective changed everything. The world was no longer a minefield I had to tiptoe through. It was a gym, and all the equipment was designed for my growth. The second lesson: learning to love your fate, Amor Fati. So if the will to power was the tool, this second lesson was the master mindset you need to use it. It's a Latin phrase Nietzsche put at the heart of his philosophy: Amor Fati. It means a love of one's fate, and he meant that literally. Not just accept your fate, not just tolerate it, but to love it. To want nothing to be different, not in the past, not in the future, not for all of eternity. That means loving your wins and your joys, but also your failures, your flaws, your heartbreaks, and your deepest pains. It means looking at every single moment of your life, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and saying, yes, I'd do it all again. This is, hands down, one of the toughest ideas in all of philosophy. My first instinct was to fight it, love the things that broke me, love the pain that kept me up at night. It sounded insane, almost sick. I was a professional at wishing my past was different. But what I was learning is that resentment is like drinking poison and hoping the other person dies. It's a pointless, exhausting war against reality. Amor Fati is the radical alternative. It's the ultimate way to take your power back. When you truly embrace Amor Fati, you stop being a victim of your life story. You become its author. Every event, no matter how bad it seemed at the time, is now just a necessary chapter that got you to where you are. Every mistake becomes a lesson. Every hardship becomes a teacher. Nietzsche understood that joy and suffering aren't opposites. They're two sides of the same coin, tangled together. If you numb your ability to feel pain, you also numb your ability to feel joy. A life that avoids all sorrow is a life that misses out on all ecstasy. By embracing Amor Fati, I started seeing my life not as a checklist of good and bad moments, but as one single, connected story. And every thread was essential. It freed me from the crushing weight of regret and turned my past from a source of shame into a source of strength. The transformation, forging an unstoppable self. Putting these ideas into practice wasn't an overnight fix. It was, and still is, a daily thing. But slowly, something profound started to shift. The weakness and bitterness that used to be my default reaction to life started to fade, replaced by a quiet confidence I'd never felt before. A few months ago, I hit a major professional roadblock that, in my old life, would have sent me into a tailspin of anxiety for weeks. This time was different. I mean, the initial sting was there, of course, but my inner voice had changed. Instead of, "Why is this happening to me?" I heard myself asking, "Okay, what is this here to teach me? How can I use this resistance to get stronger?" I saw the problem not as a judgment on my worth, but as raw material. It was a chance to engage my will to power, to practice Amor Fati, to not just put up with what was happening, but to love it as part of my story. I learned what I could from it, adapted, and moved on, not just okay, but genuinely stronger. This is the promise of Nietzsche's philosophy in action. It doesn't stop the storms from coming. It teaches you how to build a self that can not only survive them, but be nourished by them. It turns you from something brittle that can be broken into something resilient that can only be forged. The challenge. The path to a meaningful life isn't paved with comfort. It's a climb up a dangerous mountain, and the strength you get from that climb is the point. Hardship isn't the obstacle in your way, it's the way itself. So, I want to leave you with a challenge. A question to take with you. Look at your own life. What's one hardship you're facing right now, big or small, that you could start to see differently? What if you chose to see it not as a curse, but as the perfect opportunity for your own growth? Let me know in the comments what that hardship is, and one way you could try to reframe it as a source of strength. If this reflection resonated with you, subscribe to Ascend and Awaken, a life of balance for weekly insights from timeless spiritual and philosophical teachers. Peace, love, and light to you on your continual spiritual journey. Ascend and Awaken, a life of balance.